Welcome back, brothers, tourists, and ladies, to another episode of The Chapter House, the Old Glory Club's look into the men that make up the chapters of the Old Glory Club. Joining us tonight is the Stonewall Society out of Western Virginia. Note that it's not West Virginia. The West Virginia boys have still not gotten their act together, so we're all waiting with bated breath on that one. But Western Virginia. And joining us to represent the Stonewall Society is Sturgis. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. I'm happy to be here.
Well, we're happy to have you. Thanks for joining us tonight. And Johann Gottfried. It's quite a mouthful. How are you, sir?
Doing very well, sir.
Well, that's great. You know, it's very fortuitous. We had an issue about 2 weeks ago that prevented us from being able to broadcast, that pushed, the schedule out, and which means that the Stonewall Society's original air date was last week, but now that it's this week, it falls on the birthday of Stonewall Jackson, which, I don't think we could have picked a better day for it. So why don't you guys talk to us a little bit about Stonewall Jackson, and you guys named the chapter after him, right?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of characteristics of Jackson that people know. They know that he was a tremendous battlefield leader, that he was quick on the battlefield. He had a great deal of secrecy about himself when it came to his battle plans. Those things most people know.
Well, actually, I think, sorry to interrupt, but I think it actually would be good to start as early as you can. Who was Stonewall Jackson? What role did he play?
Yeah, good question. Jackson was a general in the Confederate Army. Prior to this, though, honestly, I could talk about Jackson for an hour because I've been studying this guy my whole life. I'm a great admirer personally of Jackson, and I think I could say the same about a lot of the guys in the Stonewall Society, which is why we named our group after Jackson. But Jackson was, he didn't come from the Southern aristocracy like Lee or like Stuart. Jackson came, I wouldn't say out of poverty, but he didn't come from a well-to-do family, and he grew up with quite a bit of tragedy as well. By the age of 7, he was orphaned, and he was raised by his uncle. He had no formal education and ended up securing an appointment at West Point, where he was pretty much the bottom of his class, and by the time he had graduated was 17th place. Some historians have said that had Jackson been given another year to study, he would have been first in his class. But his story is pretty tremendous from, his childhood and upbringing up until the war between the states. But really, everyone knows Jackson as being this tremendous battlefield leader, and more so for men of the Stonewall Society. We admire him here in the Shenandoah Valley because he commanded the Stonewall Brigade, the famous Stonewall Brigade at 1st Manassas. And that consisted of men from the 2nd, 4th, 5th, 27th, and 33rd Virginia Infantries, along with the Rockbridge Artillery. So people in the Valley are very close to Stonewall Jackson. He was a Virginian, although he was born in Clarksburg, West Virginia. But back then, prior to 1863, of course, as many of you might know, West Virginia was still Virginia. But yeah, Jackson, there are so many traits of Jackson that we admire, I think, as individuals in the club, and that we look up to and we want to emulate. And not to be too long-winded, Johann, do you have anything to add to that?
Oh, I just wanted to add from the very beginning that while we are a chapter based out of Western Virginia, we do have 2 members, myself and one other, that are actually from the state of West Virginia. So in choosing Stonewall as our namesake for our chapter, it was kind of a neat thing to do because he was born and he died a Virginian, yet his roots are now in West Virginia, kind of in the same way we are also crossing state lines in our chapter.
That's really interesting. I didn't know that Stonewall Jackson was a chud. That is even more encouraging, that a man can come from that and end up being a great battlefield hero. Before we get into, and I would love to hear you guys go on about Jackson, but before we get into that, what are some of the specific, like, if you're thinking of the things that Stonewall Jackson did during his career, and you're thinking about the virtues that the man had worthy of emulation, can you guys think of any stories that stand out in your mind?
Oh yeah. Well, how he got his name, Stonewall, and some in the OGC might know this story, but it occurred at First Manassas, and it was Bernard B. who made said the famous quote, "There stands Jackson like a stone wall." And what was happening was Bernard's men were under heavy fire and they were panicking. And so Bernard was looking for some way to inspire them. And he looked over at Jackson and he saw Jackson rallying his men about to do an attack, and said, look, men, there stands Jackson like a stone wall, rally behind the Virginians. And now after that incident, Jackson was confronted by Captain Imboden, which actually I had an ancestor who served under Captain Imboden during the war. And he said something along the lines of, how can you stay so calm in the heat of battle? And Jackson replied that, and I'm paraphrasing, he said something along the lines of, "My religious belief teaches me to feel as safe in battle as in bed, and if all men would believe this, all would be as equally brave." So from the very beginning, how Stonewall got his name is really iconic of the faith that he had, because he was a firm believer in providence. And Jackson's favorite scripture verse was Romans 8:28. For all things happen for good to those who love God, to them who are the called according to his purpose. So no matter what happened to Jackson, it was God's will. And he really meant it, because the battlefield proved that. Now, I even read back during the Mexican-American War, which he valiantly served in, he received three promotions within a year during the Mexican-American War. And he had the same reputation then. There were still people commenting on how calm he was in battle. So he had this faith, I think, his entire life, which really sustained him because of all the trauma he experienced when he was younger. When you look at Jackson's life, father dies at age 2, mother die. Him and his other sister are separated, and he's raised by a man who's not really loving and warm, and he's pretty much a farmhand working the mill at Jackson's mill. So I think really his faith is really the iconic thing that I admire, and stemming from that faith are all these other virtues that we would admire in Jackson. His integrity, self-discipline was a big thing for Jackson. And I'll say too, Jackson was a very complicated man. When he was a professor at VMI right before the war, he wasn't well liked. He was very awkward. As a professor, he would memorize his lessons word by word, and the students didn't like that. They couldn't ask questions, because when they asked an off question, he didn't know how to answer it. So he had his oddities and eccentricities about him, but I think what sustained him and made him into such the exceptional leader that he was his faith. Sorry for the long-winded answer.
No, that's exactly what I wanted to hear. That's perfect. A belief in providence, inspiring a man to be that steadfast in everything that he does, is definitely something that all men of the OGC should seek to emulate. That makes me wonder, within the Stonewall Society, are there many? Is there one confessional religion? Is there one confession represented, or do you guys have a smattering of different types?
Well, I would say it would be many different ones, I'd say, but yeah, we're all professing Christians. We profess our faith in the Lord Jesus Christ as our Savior. But yes, we do have different denominations represented within our chapter. Johan, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I agree. We have several Catholic members, and representing just about every brand of Protestantism as well. Whether they still belong to that or not. Some out of Lutheran traditions, Presbyterian, etc. But that is one of the values that we try to stress in our chapter is being men like Jackson, using his life as an example of be men of high character, quality, men of your word, but also men who take our faith seriously.
Yeah, that's great stuff. Do you guys are you guys spread out over a large geographic area, or are you all within like an hour or two of one another?
We are spread out.
Yeah, spread out.
Probably 3.5, 4 hours between the furthest chapter members. The Shenandoah Valley is narrow but very long, and that's kind of our geographical area.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. I was gonna ask if you guys had people who went to church together, or how that all functioned. But if you're all spread out that far, I imagine that might be a little difficult. But yeah, you guys are in the Shenandoah Valley, and I think most people's exposure to the Shenandoah Valley is from that song that everyone knows. You know the one I'm talking about. Can you guys tell us a little bit about the Shenandoah Valley?
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess I'll just start from the beginning. Shenandoah translates in the Indian language as daughter of the stars. And at one time, like all of America, our beautiful valley was a frontier. And it was the premier hunting ground for the Indians. And then we came along and had to drive them out, and they were not very friendly. But this was their hunting ground, and by the year 1700 is when the first swath of settlers came, mostly Scotch-Irish and German. And 1730s is the big time, and when the valley was settled, and the Germans took one side. Or one half, and then the Scotch-Irish kind of took the other half. And it's always been, our valley has always been a very agricultural area. The county that I'm in, Rockingham County, is the '1 agricultural county in the state of Virginia. And it's always been that way. We've always been very agricultural, period. And that's even true back then. During the war between the states, we were known as the breadbasket of the Confederacy. But there's some very fascinating history with the valley too. America's first president, George Washington, surveyed the northern part of the Shenandoah Valley when he was in the British Army. And there's some interesting history too attached to the French and Indian War, as Washington used Winchester, which is on the northern part of the valley. He used that as his primary base for operations during the French and Indian War. And then we notably had Peter Muhlenberg. For those who love Revolutionary War history, he was the fighting parson. And like I said, as our Christian values are a very big part of the Stonewall Society, this goes back all the way to the very beginning of the Valley. Men of the Valley have always been primarily Christian men, and that showed during the Revolutionary War. That showed during the War between the States, and so there is some very interesting history attached to the Valley. There was one story actually that JR, another member of our club, had told me about recently, and it happened in 1760 or 1766, and it was an Indian raiding party that actually attacked some settlers that were traveling to Woodstock, Virginia. Woodstock's about probably a 30-minute drive south of Winchester, and they were attacked by this Indian raiding party, and they butchered most of the men. Well, the wives actually took up axes and defended themselves and their children and survived the whole ordeal. So it shows you how hardy these people were back then too. But yeah, if you have any specific questions about the Valley, we'd be happy to answer them.
No, I mean, again, being named after Stonewall Jackson, I imagine there must have been some battles during the war that took place in that area. Could you let the viewer in on some of that?
Oh, absolutely. So, there were, I believe, about 15 battles that occurred in the Shenandoah Valley. There's probably more if you count like skirmishes, like the Battle of Harrisonburg, which nobody ever hears of. They now call it a skirmish. That's a rabbit trail conversation, so I won't even go down that one. But 15 battles in total. A lot of them, many of the listeners, if they're history buffs, have heard of, Battle of Winchester, the Battle of Newmarket, Stonewall Jackson's 1862 Valley Campaign with the battles of Cross Keys and Port Republic, Battle of Cedar Creek, Cool Spring, Lynchburg. I mean, there's a whole laundry list of battles and battlefields that you can visit today here in the Valley.
Yeah, so you guys are... Go ahead, Johan.
It's actually hard to drive any road in the Valley without coming upon either signs along the road. You can even be on some really, like, a dirt back road and just, come upon a monument where, maybe a famous person fell or something like that. The Valley is littered with that kind of stuff.
Well, that's really interesting. So you're saying that, like, anywhere, basically, if you're in the Valley, I mean, I know, are there still a lot of back roads that don't get a lot of traffic back there? Things that will lead to, like, these old battle sites that people don't typically go down?
Oh, yeah. And what people of the Valley have always been very attached to their history. So over the years, they'll put up these trail plaques. So you'll be driving down a back road and you'll see one, and it'll, tell you something significant that happened at that crossing or river. And a lot of times it's skirmishes or somebody significant that got killed. This whole valley is just chock full of history.
I mean, it makes me want to spend a week down there. Is that something you guys, as a chapter, go in for? Do you guys tour the battlefields and or even help maintain them?
Well, we haven't yet done any battlefield tours, but we were literally just talking about that within the past 24 hours in our chat. That is a big plan for us in the future, and to host some other chapters as well if they want to come down and join in. We would love to do that. And I know quite a few people in the Valley that are historians that would make good tour guides, and they're not woke, which makes it nice. And so we're definitely going to plan some of those in the future.
Well, it definitely sounds like it would be a heck of a trip. What's the area out there like? I mean, right now, we're sitting in January. Where I am, it is snowing, so it is quite cold. But what's the I guess the weather, what's the weather like down there? Is this something that you could do like in a February, or is it something that would have to wait for spring?
Well, you know, Virginia weather isn't that bad. I feel like it's not like upstate New York or something. It does get cold. It would get down in the 20s. But the weather is suitable enough. We get a couple major snowstorms a year. But yeah, the weather is fine here. Fine conditions to do a battlefield tour this time of year. I think. Although we might want to wait until spring or summer, those would definitely be a lot nicer. But we get 4 seasons here, and spring and fall is beautiful. The valley is an extremely beautiful place. For all those who've never been here, we have the Blue Ridge Parkway, which is a great place to drive on and see all the foliage change. But yeah, the valley as a whole has always been just a very beautiful place too.
Is Lynchburg part of the valley?
No, I don't consider. I could be wrong, but no, I'm fairly certain Lynchburg is not. Lexington is, though.
Okay. Yeah, okay, that makes sense. I was going to ask if Lynchburg is considered to be a part of the area that you guys operate in.
Yeah, Johan, you'll have to double check that. I don't think we go that far south.
We get very close. A person living in Lynchburg would have a choice basically between joining, say, the Vetus Dominum Club or our club. We do have some members that live basically like 30 minutes out of Lynchburg.
Okay, yeah. What's the valley like these days? So, I've never been there, but I imagine it's a place that is largely cut off from the larger political struggles of Virginia, especially the places closer to Washington. Now, with 81 going through it, it's not exactly cut off from the world, but what sort of people has it been like? Has the place been like ethnically cleansed and replaced by foreigners, or is it still largely heritage American?
Depends on whether you are out in the country or in one of the large towns or cities. Out in the country, the people are very, very conservative, both in their beliefs and in their politics. Your typical red-blooded American. The Valley, at least the part that I'm most familiar with, is home to a lot of like Mennonites and conservative brethren. So yes, very, very conservative as well in dress. But then you go into the cities. Any town or city that has a university, and it's night and day. You go from out in the country, red-blooded heritage Americans go in, and it's straight blue. A lot of the valley is really growing up as well. A lot of construction, a lot of people moving in from other states like Maryland, New York, DC, Northern Virginians that are moving more inland. So with that construction, a lot of building going on, you do see a lot of, we'll just say, not heritage Americans in large groups doing a lot of building for a very affordable price.
So when they're building these these neighborhoods, are they typically going to their co-ethnics, or is it something that's still being sold to? Are you still getting heritage Americans moving in there? I know that. I mean, this is kind of a loaded question because I imagine there isn't anywhere in the country that isn't being affected by the replacement migration. But what's that kind of like? So before I restate that question, because I kind of went on a little bit, would you consider the valley going from Winchester being its northernmost town down to Lexington?
Yeah, I would consider that, but other people in our group would say that it's technically more north than that and a little more south. But I generally always consider the top of the valley, the Winchester area, the bottom, Lexington.
Okay, so there's some contention that it might stretch as far down as Roanoke.
Yes.
Roanoke and even Blacksburg.
Oh, okay.
Even further south.
Yeah, I'm wondering this strange tail end that goes west of Blacksburg before it terminates down there in Millsboro. Is that wouldn't be considered a part of your guys' territory either? That's pretty far away. I mean, I know this is a different chapter, but is that the Vetus Dominium would be a part of that extreme western area?
I don't know that there are any OGC brothers in that area. So as far as I know, that's a question that we have not really had to answer yet. I do know there was some interest in our chapter from a gentleman. I believe he was maybe just a little further south of Blacksburg, and we actually directed him more towards the Tennessee. I can't remember the chapter that's close to Virginia and Tennessee, but he was actually fairly close to them.
Interesting.
Much closer to them than he would have been to us, or really the Vetus Dominium.
Very interesting. So that is pretty far southwest. Yeah, sorry, I got a little distracted there. But talking about the people moving in, so it sounds like it's refugees from the bluer areas, and there's just the same thing that's going on all over the country.
I have a story. I don't think I've even told my group guys this yet. I was at church on Sunday, and I got into a conversation with an older woman, and we started talking about politics and taxes, and she's a boomer, a normie conservative, and she said, "I just can't believe it. They're taxing us in our neighborhood because of lack of diversity." She's like, "Can you believe it? There's a diversity tax on my house." And I was like, "What?" So yeah, in the city of Harrisonburg, which if you look at Rockingham County in any electoral map, it's red. And I mean, I'm talking the people that are here, that have been here for a while, it's very conservative. But in that city limit of Harrisonburg, that little dot in the center of Rockingham County is bluer than blue. And for whatever reason, the valley in Rockingham County has fell victim to a lot of this woke ideology from some of the more progressive, quote unquote, Christians in the area. And so they're trying to bring all these people in, and of course crime goes up and everything else happens that's negative. But yeah, that's just a little insight into what's happening in our community. I'm sure that's happening in other counties in the valley too. Maybe not as bad, but it's happening in Rockingham.
I mean, a diversity tax, like if it's added onto your property tax for not having a diverse enough ethnic makeup, that's
Yep.
I mean, that's insane, but it's right in line with what I would expect coming out of any blue area, really. But Harrisonburg is one of those places that has a bunch of universities, right?
Yeah, James Madison, correct. Eastern Mennonite University, Bridgewater College. Yeah.
So a lot of those people, after they're done getting mind raped in academia, yeah, they stick around and shit up the place a little.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, absolutely.
Sorry, Johan, I didn't mean to laugh over what you were saying.
Oh no, I was just agreeing. Absolutely correct.
So I know this is kind of this isn't really related to your chapter, but it's on everyone's mind. And I had Mr. Wallbanger, shout out, put my mind somewhat at ease over some of this stuff last night, but the insanity that's already coming out of the Spanberger, very Heritage American name, governorship. I mean, obviously, that's going to mess up your entire state. What do you guys, as citizens of Virginia, how do you see all that going?
I am West Virginia, and I am very, very thankful to be from West Virginia right now.
Yeah, I mean, it sucks. It's horribly blackpilling, but we just try to stay positive. There was a large swath of Republicans that didn't go out and vote, and unfortunately, I knew some people that didn't want to vote for the Republican ticket, and I don't blame them. I understand. But my logic was, well, I mean, if you're not going to vote for the Republican ticket, you're basically casting your lot with Spanberger, and so we didn't have all the Virginians show out, all the conservatives or whatever, come out and vote, and that was a major problem, and we're all going to suffer from it. I mean, this woman's going to, she wants to take the history. 501c3 history stat, or the tax exempt status, away from a lot of these historic organizations, organizations that are, well over 100 years old. The United Daughters of the Confederacy there in Richmond, they want to make sure that they can't pay for their headquarters that they've had for, decades. And these, an organization started by women and right now run by old women. I mean, it's a harmless organization. And so, Youngkin was kind of the bulwark to stop some of this attack against our history, these historic organizations. And now she's going to try to take it away. She is going to take it away. And same thing with guns, firearms. She wants to put on all sorts of regulation and taxes and all these other hoops you have to jump through, just like they have up in New York State or California. She claims to be a moderate, but I mean, anybody who has a brain can figure out this woman is anything but moderate.
I didn't hear about her targeting historical organizations. Do you know any more about that? Is she looking to what?
Yeah, she wants to take away their tax exempt status, so it's harder for them to survive. Especially with the United Daughters of the Confederacy is already kind of dying off because it's hard to get in that organization and whatnot. But yeah, that and taking our beloved Robert E. Lee off of our Virginia license plates, that should be a free choice for people. Lee was an exceptional man, an exceptional American hero, and that's just not me saying that. That's 9 different presidents since 1870 who agree with me. This is a great man that Virginia has honored as one of their heroes, and now she wants to disparage that by taking away people's right to have his picture, a very small picture, on their license plate. It's stuff like that. And then same with the SCV, as far as I'm aware, same thing with their tax exempt status for the Virginia division. It makes it harder for those organizations to operate.
Yeah, it makes them have to lean on their donors a little bit more. That's that's completely. It's not something that was on my radar, but it completely makes sense that these people would go after our heritage. As soon as they get in power. Go ahead.
It's simply a continuation of what we saw. Was it Ralph Northam before?
Yeah, before Youngkin.
Yes. Ralph North, with the removal of the beautiful statues in Charlottesville, in Richmond, of Lee and Jackson, and that war on our heritage. It's like Virginians got a breath of fresh air for a few years and then do what we do best, which is lose. And now it's really most of these laws that I see going that they are pushing for, it really is like, it's just the logical next step. I don't know that anybody is really surprised. I mean, we're horrified by what's happening, but not really surprised.
Yeah, I was told that a lot of those proposed laws have to go through a referendum process. Do you guys know anything about that?
Well, the Democrats run everything. They run the House, the Senate, and they have the governor's mansion. So, as far as I know, they can pass whatever they want. But no, about specifics more than that, I haven't heard that. We need Harvey on here to give us all those details.
Yeah, the Vius Dominium will be coming back around in a couple of months. But as long as there's readouts left, there's always hope. And what you were saying before about Jackson being a firm believer in solemn providence, it's it's just one of those virtues. You have to have faith.
Absolutely.
I wanted to ask you guys a little bit about the structure of the Stonewall Society. Do you guys have any rituals, or I mean, I know that a lot of some of this might be secret. It might be privileged information only. But do you guys have any rituals or opening words that you begin your meetings with, or any observances?
We do not have any rituals. We're working on a few things that we would like to implement in the future. The one ritual, if you will, that we are looking at as far as making an annual event for our chapter is what we did this past weekend, is going down to Lexington, Virginia for the celebration of Lee Jackson Day. Now that it is not we do not run the event. We simply show up to support the Stonewall Brigade Sons of Confederate Veterans that put the celebration on every year. It's kind of one of those things that the city of Lexington has really tried to stomp out and do away with. But through the SCV's persistence, this is an event that can still be held. You can proudly march down the street flying flags that celebrate your heritage as of now.
Well, that's great. Could you explain for us Yanks what Lee Jackson Day is?
Yes, Lee Jackson Day was started years and years ago. It's probably 100 years ago. I can't think of the exact date now, but it was made into a holiday to celebrate two of the greatest Virginians that we think ever lived. And also, it's been traditionally celebrated in Lexington because, number one, Jackson lived in Lexington before the war, and because Lee was also the president of Washington College, and Washington College is now Washington and Lee because of Lee. And of course, Lee actually is the one who saved that college from probably going into bankruptcy. So Lexington has always admired Lee and Jackson. Oh, one more thing too, VMI is there, the Virginia Military Institute. And of course, Jackson was a professor at VMI. But all those things make it a iconic place to celebrate Lee Jackson Day. So Virginians did for many, many years, for decades. And it was just more recently, within the past 10 years, that Lexington became more and more opposed to Virginians celebrating it. And I think the issue was many of the outsiders that have come in. And this happens everywhere. I know some people who graduated from W&L, and they would run into people who want to disparage Washington, or more specifically Lee, yet they go to a school called Washington and Lee. Hey, if you wanted to go to a woke school with somebody with a woke name, why didn't you go to one? You went to a school that literally has Washington and Lee on the name, but they come in and they want to change everything. But yeah, and it was celebrated not just in Lexington, but all across Virginia.
So has the celebration kind of? I mean, I imagine there are other places outside of Lexington that it's celebrated, but is that the biggest celebration in the state right now?
Well, they officially removed it from as a holiday for Virginians, and of course now it's King Day. And but yes, people do. There are many people who might put up their Robert E. Lee headquarter flag, or just simply fly the Confederate flag, or put a unique flag on there representing the holiday. People celebrate it in their own way. I think Lexington is probably the most significant place. More of a protest is why people gather there, and they lawfully do it. But yeah, I would say real Virginians still celebrate it.
Yeah, amen. I mean, it's one of these things when I'm listening to you talk about how Lexington is trying to get people to basically stop celebrating that. It makes me think of traditionally the only time that people stop celebrating something is because they've been conquered, and I don't remember that happening anywhere in Virginia. So I'm glad that it's still celebrated. But so you're trying to make that an annual thing that your chapter gathers to do?
Absolutely. Yeah, we are proud of our heritage, while recognizing that our heritage is not perfect. But when, like you said, when those celebrations go away, when those patriotic things are no longer held, it is a sign that you are a conquered people. And I feel like by showing up to events, not just that events, but even similar events throughout the state, you're showing that you are still proud of where you came from, proud of your heritage in a very public way. And I think people see that. And of course, some will look and will hate, but I think a lot of people, we joined in the parade down the streets of Lexington this past weekend, and there were a lot of people standing along the road, waving and smiling, and a very overwhelmingly warm reception. I'm thinking of only one street corner where there were maybe 3 people protesting. But even if it's a small group, and even if it's a small thing, you have to do what you can to keep your history alive, or it will die.
Yeah, it's very encouraging that on the parade route, you guys had a lot of support. I think that would be a wonderful tradition to keep for the Stonewall Society. You'd mentioned before that, and this is just me being interested in what you said, that Lee had prevented the then Washington University from going bankrupt.
Yeah. I mean, after the war, the Virginia was devastated, the South was devastated financially, and I mean, it was just devastated, period, especially the Valley itself, with Sheridan's 1864 burning of the Valley, which was kind of like a mini version of Sherman's March to the Sea. It was very destructive. But there was a lot of devastation, and Washington College likely would have not survived. One story about Lee that's really telling, maybe some haven't heard, is that after the war, Lee was offered a substantial sum of money. And even at this time, there were Northern men who admired Lee and respected Lee just because of his reputation prior to the war. And this outfit asked Robert E. Lee if he would come work for their insurance company, be the name for their insurance company. And Lee said, "My name is not for sale." And this was a lot of money. I want to say it was like 10 grand, which back then is like a lot of money, substantial amount of money. He instead decided to devote the remaining years of his life to educating the Southern youth and trying to pick up the pieces of his country. And that was him serving at Washington College, because they were on the ropes. Like it was looking bad. And then when Lee came and he was the president, I mean, every Southerner that had anything wanted to go to that college. And histories that I've read too make the claim that Lee didn't even many times take his entire portion of his salary. So it just shows you the kind of character Lee was and the man he was. Sure, he might have lost. He lost the war, but he was a tremendous man of integrity. And that's the thing that shines through all of the hatred that people have for this man that they don't know anything about. They've never studied. They've listened to CNN with, say, a clip on how bad Robert E. Lee is and how they need to tear the statue down. But these people don't know anything about him. So, but yeah, that's the story of Washington Lee. He saved it. And so the university honored him by putting his name on the university, Washington and Lee.
I mean, that's a story of true aristocracy, nobility. It's a shame that that's so long forgotten in American governance and in our leaders in general. But that's the story of civilization, I suppose. But it is, again, very encouraging that there are areas in the Shenandoah Valley where people are trying to keep that history alive, because Lord knows we're going to need all the help we can get in making sure it isn't intentionally erased for future generations. So I'm glad that's something that's on your guys' radar. Do you have what else is the Stonewall Society? What else do you guys have? Do you guys have anything planned? Do you have things that you're kind of picking at, ideas in the air?
Don't have much planned right now as far as public events. We do have a few private things that we're working on, just internal Sturgis, I don't know if you have anything to add.
Well, we've got a couple hikes. We've got some classes we're gonna put together for our group. That's February. We'll have a class for members. We're not going to mention on what it's about. And what else? We've got a hike potentially planned, possibly a retreat. We do like to get together. I mean, we get together once a month for breakfast, and we'll meet in different parts of the valley just to make it easier sometimes for different members. And that's always an enjoyable time. We have a lot of to talk more about the guys in our group. I think probably one of the most significant things about our group too is I think everybody pretty much has kids. So it's kind of harder for us to do stuff as easily as the bachelors. So yeah, we do like to get together in real life and have a good time.
I mean, that's also very encouraging. You said that most of your members have children. It's interesting to see the different demographic breakdowns of the different chapters, especially when it comes to age groups. Do you guys have a lot of Zoomers, or is it mostly like millennials with families?
We are mostly like Zoomers with, I believe Zoomers with families.
Wow.
I think our youngest member is 26 and our oldest is 45. So we're a fairly narrow age range. And yes, overwhelmingly married guys with kids. I did the counted up before this in preparation for this episode, we have 11 members, and of the 11 members, we have 23 children between us.
That's wonderful. I mean, at least everyone's got two on average, but that's really cool. And it seems that you guys, if a lot of your guys are Zoomers, I mean, if the youngest is 26, I'd say that's like an elder Zoomer, right? And so you've got some Zoomers with families and children, kind of breaking that generational curse. That's very encouraging that you could find men in that bracket that want to get involved in this sort of thing.
It really is a blessing. A lot of the things that we do, we try to make as family friendly as possible. It's a wonderful, I mean, that is, in my opinion, the primary duty that we have as men. It's great to go out in the world and do things, whatever you want to do, run for office or, become a leader in your community. But, the primary, have a family, raise up kids that follow in your heritage, whether that heritage, related to faith, related to history, bringing them up to appreciate their past, because very, very few children nowadays know anything about their history. Like, they might not even know who their grandparents are. And that's a very sad thing.
Yeah, I think that that's a story of modernity and where you are in the country. One of the things that I admire greatly about the South as a Yankee is there are far more Southerners that I know who have connection to their lineage, and that can tell you where their grandparents and great-grandparents and great-great-grandparents are not only from, but where they're buried. George Bagby is fond of saying, in the North, people ask, what do you do? Whereas in the South, some people ask, where are your parents buried, or where are your grandparents buried?
Mm-hmm.
Which is something that I don't think should go away. And I never use the phrase or the word clannishness. I never see that as a derogatory phrase, though it is often deployed that to describe the men of the South, which is just completely unfair. But yeah, I mean, on a happier note, I'm less than a year a father, and my first child is a daughter, and I have to already start thinking about who I'm going to pair her off with. So if I had a bunch of peers that had kids, it'd make it a lot easier. Here, let's slide on over and take a look at these super chats. From Jay Forte for $5. What are the odds you got these great guys on the birthday of their namesake? Well, we were talking about Providence. How about that?
Yeah, seriously,
Yes,
nobody planned
sure
this. Nobody planned that.
Yeah, I mean, we have a schedule obviously for this show, and one of my favorite jokes is, how do you make God laugh? You tell him your plans, and I imagine that goes for schedules as well. So we'll chalk that one up to the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
So true. And we've actually
Amen.
hung out with Mr. Forte up here in the valley. So good to see you, sir.
Very cool. All right, Melon for $15. God bless Virginia. It's a crime we aren't taught more about this man in the North. He was too successful and noble of a figure to cover in government education. I mean, ain't that the truth? Having gone to public school in New England, all I really learned about the Civil War is that it was the South's fault, and they lost. We didn't really learn about the men at all. So I'm glad that you guys decided to take up the mantle of keeping these guys this Stonewall Jackson's memory.
Absolutely. It's our honor.
All right, let's see. Paul Fahrenheit for $9.99. That 1 cent would have made it sound like he was giving us too much. I appreciate his humility. God bless the Stonewall Society. Amen. God bless the Stonewall
Thank you,
Society.
Paul.
God bless you, sir.
Finally, Vindicator Man. For $10, that I guess he gave that last 1 cent to Vindicator Man. Good evening, gentlemen. One bright side of the leftist control of everything here is that it will bring us, the opposition, closer together. Look forward to seeing you all at future events. Godspeed.
Godspeed, sir.
Is Vindicator Man, if I remember, he's in the Bluestone Heritage League. Have you guys met with them a bunch?
Yes, he showed up to our event. He showed up to the Lee Jackson Day last weekend.
Hey, how about that? Yeah, Vindicator Man is a well-traveled individual for certain. All right, let's see. We got our weekly super sticker from our friend Dawn Browning in the Down Under for $10 Australian. Sends us a super sticker of an anthropomorphic hippo in a gaming chair, drifting and leaving a tail of fire. Indeed, there's that kind of reminds me of the this might be I might be dating myself here. Do you guys remember the founder of 8chan?
Yeah, I forget now though. Explain.
Yeah, he was anyway. let those who remember remember. All right. Well, we're coming up on the hour, and it was very interesting indeed. I am one of those Yankees who is a little bit ashamed at how little he knows about South and Southern history, especially being friends with George Bagby, whose books I have read about such things. So either way, guys, Stonewall Society, strong showing. What should we expect from you guys in the next year?
Well,
hopefully,
you go ahead.
Hopefully, perhaps not this summer, but in the near future, we hope to put on some battlefield tour. Last year, several of us were able to go up to the Gettysburg tour that was put on by the Pennsylvania Brothers, and that's been a real inspiration to us as we've looked at some of the many battlefields in this area, doing something similar. I doubt that it will be this year, but I do know that there are some events, not necessarily that we put on, but our sister chapter, the Vitas Dominum Club. Everybody's probably by now aware of the East Coast Forum. I know that will be happening again this year, and several other large East Coast events that we hope to take part in and perhaps help, if we don't plan them ourselves.
That's wonderful. That's something we'll keep an eye on, and we'll be sure to look out for the Stonewall Jackson members, the Stonewallers, out in the wild. And then the last thing, any bit of wisdom, lesson, challenge, something overcome that you want to impart to your brothers.
Well, no wisdom, but if people want to learn more about Stonewall Jackson, I tried to do him honor on his 202nd birthday, but he really genuinely is a very fascinating character, and there's a lot that one can glean from studying his life, not just the battlefield tactics, but his personal life, and a couple books that are really good about telling this, my favorite would probably be James Robertson, his book on Jackson, which is called Stonewall Jackson, the Man, the Soldier, the Legend. It's about 900 pages, but it actually is a page turner. He's a really good writer. A most detailed account of Jackson. And then Jackson, the Good Soldier, Stonewall Jackson, the Good Soldier by Alan Tate's another good one. And one of my favorites, Stonewall Jackson's Verse by Ron Rumberg. So anybody that wants to learn more about Jackson, I recommend those books.
Some great recommendations. Thank you, Sturgis. Johan, any parting words?
If we're at this point in the episode, I'm sure you've all already heard this, but get involved, join the OGC. Don't wait, jump in now. If you are in an area where you don't have a chapter close to you, find 4 other guys and start one. That's kind of what we did. We were kind of isolated on this side of the state. We're a year, 9 months in, and we're still figuring things out. We aren't as organized as some of the other chapters, but we jumped in. We're figuring it out as we go. And the OGC has just offered us opportunities for so much fellowship with like-minded brothers.
Well, that's the thing of beauty. And let none say that the men of the Stonewall Society are not men of action, which is exactly what we need in the Old Glory Club. So if you are a man of action, please do take Johann Gottfried's words to heart. Thank you all for joining us this week in the Chapter House. Be sure to check us out next week with the Old Line League from Maryland, another East Coast chapter. Check out the new and improved Pony Express Radio every Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern, the best time zone, and American Spirits on Monday, same time, 8 p.m.